There's this thought that once you've gone in through the system, that you somehow lose your rights. You no longer have the rights of a lot of different things, and one of them is voting.
We have a system in place where we don't spend the time to make sure that people, especially folks with records, the most vulnerable group of folks, know about those rights.
You know, when we talk about re-entry to those that have, you know, that have former convicted people, this is part of that. This was something that started in the summer of 2017, and our now Lieutenant Governor is an initiative of hers and with some of the proponents to sort of work on some legislations like this.
When I worked for her, she had a lot of really innovative ideas with respect to criminal justice reform, and after having like this successful kind of first session as a new legislator, I remember her saying like, Jalen, the next thing I'm gonna do is tackle voting in jails. And so in comes this new bill.
And I ended up pulling together a coalition of organizations who support voting rights work, and we drafted legislation, and then we built out a plan to move the bill last year. We were successful until it got to the governor's desk. The then Governor Rauner issued an amendatory veto, which means that he decided to take out a certain portion of the language from the bill. So we decided to start over. So Senate Bill 2090, I am the chief lobbyist on the bill. I work in coalition of other organizations to get support for the bill and make sure that it gets enough votes to get out of both chambers and to the governor's desk.
At any given time in Illinois, approximately 20,000 people awaiting trial are detained in jails. Many of them have the right to vote, but no formal process to do so. Senate Bill 2090 is trying to change that. The bill would require county jails and election authorities to create programs that would allow detainees to cast their ballots too. Of all the counties in Illinois, only 8 currently have jail voting programs. Illinois is one of the few states in the U.S. that already facilitates voting in jail. Still, the road to making Senate Bill 2090 a reality is a long one.
The bill is introduced this time in the Senate by Senator Aquino. It is assigned to a committee. It was assigned to the executive committee. There's a committee hearing. We have to get a majority of the votes in that committee for it to go on the floor. Once it's on the floor, it has to be read 3 times, and then we have to have enough votes. So in the Senate, it's at least 30 votes to get it over to the House. And it's currently in the House. It was assigned to executive in the House. And right now we're waiting because it hasn't been called for a committee vote yet. So once it's called for a committee vote, we have a majority of the votes to get it to the House floor. After 3 readings on the House floor, it will hopefully get the 60 plus votes it needs to get it to the governor's desk.
A committee hearing for SB 2090 still has not been scheduled, and the deadline to do so is only a week away.
Yeah, oh, that's good. Yeah, we're just putting SB 2090 on the map. Not sure the likelihood of it passing right now.
We are all here to phone bank and advocate for SB 2090.
And that is our voting in jail bill. We really don't know what's going on, so we're just making calls to everybody. And so what we're asking is that you call these 3 people.
2090 is struggling a little bit. It needs the extra little push. It was comforting hearing that a few moments ago when I called Speaker Madigan's office that they said that they had been getting calls about 2090 all day, and so that I was not the first person to call about it today, even though Alex and I are the ones who threw this phone bank specifically for 2090 to get pushed. Advocating for things like this, that's the key to get people who are in positions of power to like listen to the people. At Chicago Votes, we have a program called Cook County Jail Votes. We go into Cook County Jail every month to do voter registration. Around election season, we go in there to hold elections with the Board of Elections. Next week is the make or break. It's either gonna happen or it's not.
Typically, changes in Illinois election law occur when all the leaders get together, look at what changes ought to be made, need to be made. I think it'll get a serious look I don't do predictions generally, so I can't do predictions about what the fate of that particular bill or the ideas that are expressed in that bill that might become an amendment for a bigger election law package. I think Mike Madigan's view is the more people who vote, the better off our society, our state will be, and that's where he's been consistently over the years.
Maybe I'm still idealistic, but I think voting is a really important right, and I think it has the ability to really create real change in terms of who are the people who dictate our policy. And the idea that if in Illinois all of the people with records had the right to vote and they actually voted at the super local level, so imagine that somebody who was impacted by the criminal justice system, if they in their locality were to vote against judges who were smart on crime, who used punitive sentencing, or if they were actively voted and mobilized to vote for representatives who really think about criminal justice reform.
Benny Lee was in and out of jail from his late teens into his early 30s. The time he spent incarcerated taught him the power of voting, something he later passed along to other formerly incarcerated people.
It was in 2009 that I've seen a lot of men and women coming out of the system that complain about they couldn't do certain things because of their criminal backgrounds. So we initially started off forming what we call a voting bloc among formerly incarcerated convicted people. And that's how this organization, NAFI, came about, National Alliance for the Empowerment of the Formerly Incarcerated.
The formerly incarcerated is not the only group Lee encourages to vote.
During the primaries, I was on the L platform on State and Roosevelt, and I noticed a crowd of young people come up. I asked them, do y'all vote? Y'all registered to vote? And they was like a choir. Hell no, we don't vote. That stuff don't vote. I said, well, let me ask you this. Do you guys have problems with police harassment and all that? They said, yeah, man. So if you guys want to change that, you might want to know who your alderman is, or when the election come around. That's why I asked, was you registered to vote? And so one of the guys said, well, sign me up now. I said, well, I tell you what, I'm going to give you my card. If you really serious about voting, I'm going to come where you at and register you. About 2 days later, he called me. He said, hey, man, where you at, man? We up on the block. Why don't you come and talk to them about what you was telling us on the L platform? You know, I left there with maybe 21 of them registered to vote.
Lee supports SB2090. He believes it can make voting an easier right to exercise for people in jail.
Well, I think it's very, very important because people that are in the county jail, they still are protected by the Constitution of this country. Organizations such as mine should have access to them because being detained, they can't come out and cast a vote.
SB 2090 this morning was in committee. It passed with a vote of 8-5. There was evidently some major pushback from the Republicans on the committee, specifically coming from Representative Butler.
Well, they currently have the opportunity to participate. We're not denying them the opportunity to participate currently.
I think part of the problem, that, as I understand it, is that because they're in jail, they're not able to request the ballot. So there needs to be the opportunity for either the sheriff to give them an application, or the clerks to come in to give them that application. So
why are they not able to?
The answer to that is very simple. That's what this bill is for. These people have the right to vote, and the things that would allow them to do so are not in place.
On May 28th, SB 2090 passed out of the House. Now that the bill has successfully gone through both chambers, it heads to Governor Pritzker's desk, where he has 3 options. He can sign the bill, making it law effective immediately. He can do a mandatory veto, revise the bill, and send it back to the General Assembly for consideration. Or he can do nothing at all, and after 60 days, the bill becomes law.
There were a lot of hours put into this, a lot of planning, a lot of strategic organizing, just a lot in general. And to see that not only did it make some progress, but we're right there. We could see the light at the end of the tunnel now. It's a beautiful feeling.